And joining us now with reaction, someone who has endorsed Donald Trump, the president of Liberty University, Jerry Falwell Jr., and the author of the new book, Not All Roads Lead to Heaven. Fox News contributor Dr. Robert Jeffress and Grand Rapids area Catholic priest, Father Robert Sirocco. Guys, good to see you both all. Thank you for being with us. Father, you know, I was raised a Catholic. I got to admit, I find these comments disgraceful. You know, judge not lest you be judged. I read that in the Bible. I remember, you know, Jesus saying to a prostitute, ye who was without sin cast the first stone. And we all know the story of the prodigal son. Who is the Pope to say that Donald Trump's not a Christian?
Well, Donald Trump thinks he's the only one who gets to pontificate. I mean, you're sitting next to a man there who's written a book, Not Everybody Goes to Heaven. I guess this does away with the image of the Pope not being able to judge, right? Who am I to judge? Let's admit the fact that, first of all, the Pope didn't use Donald Trump's name. I think it is lamentable that the Pope has descended
Father, that's not fair. He was asked specifically about Donald Trump. That was a question, and he said he's not a Christian. That is a judgment. Doesn't the Bible specifically say, judge not, lest ye be judged?
Listen, the last thing that Jesus says to that prostitute is go and sin no more. That's a judgment. He said that she sinned. Let's ask Dr. Falwell
the Pope is not Jesus,
if we can't make judgments. He's the vicar of Christ. The point is that Donald Trump shows
about good and evil, but you don't make judgments. Only God judges, right? Only God can discern whether we're good or evil.
Only God can give us the ultimate judgment. The point is that that Trump thinks that he can be bombastic in every encounter with any leader in the world.
Why are you making this about Trump?
By the way,
do you know, and can you read his heart, Father? Do you know if he's a Christian? Do you know if I'm a Christian? Do I know if you're a Christian in your heart? There were many priests, wait a minute. There were many priests that were involved in pedophilia against young children. Was that evil? Is that being a Christian?
Of course it was evil. But, Sean, this is a very low blow.
The church kept a lot of those priests working.
Is that what we're here to talk about, Sean? You want to get into that? Because if you do, let's get into it right now.
Well, let's get into it because the church actually moved some of these pedophiles. They didn't get arrested. They didn't go to court. I'm a Catholic, sir.
So we're here to talk about...
I went to a seminary, and I found that disgraceful.
Let me ask you this. By whose standards do we judge pedophilia to be the abomination that it is? We judge them by the church's standards. So the church, if it did what it says...
the church covered it up.
No, and those people are to be condemned. But now we're judging them, right? So the Pope doesn't get to say...
Jerry Falwell Jr., let me ask you. I read the Bible, and I think I'm one of the Christians that needs the forgiveness, okay? That's my belief in Christianity. But it does say, judge not lest you be judged. How can a Pope or anybody decide if somebody's a Christian in their heart? You described a Donald Trump that a lot of people don't know when you introduced him at Liberty University. I'll never forget that speech.
Yeah, I've gotten to know Mr. Trump very well over the last few years, and I've seen his acts of generosity to strangers. I've seen how well he treats his employees. I've seen how close his relationship and how loving it is with his children. And I've had personal conversations with him just in the last few weeks about his faith, and I have no doubts that he is a man of faith, that he's a Christian. But that's not why I'm supporting him for president. I'm supporting him for president because we're at a critical juncture in our history. Our security is at stake. Our economy is about to collapse. And I believe he is the best equipped and the most qualified person to lead this country to greatness again. And I've made that clear over and over. And I think the Pope is confusing people by talking about whether or not this candidate's a Christian or that candidate's a Christian. That's not the point. Jimmy Carter was a great Christian, but a terrible president. And so I think we've got to focus on who is most qualified. If your child is sick, you want the best doctor. You don't want a doctor who shares your faith necessarily. So that's just,
Dr. Jeffress,
I think the Pope is confused. I hope.
Dr. Jeffress, let me ask this question. I'll put up on the screen, you know, I know there's certain areas in the Vatican where people in the public can go, but the Vatican, too, has big walls around it. And I can put it up on the screen and people can look at it. And a Washington Times article from September of 2015 detailed the very difficult process of becoming a Vatican resident or citizen. You know, we have big problems in this country. Drug dealers. I've been down to the Mexico border 12 times. I've seen drug warehouses, floor to ceiling, drugs that are being brought into this country. We have crimes committed by illegal immigrants. I know some people want a job. It's not everybody, but some. And to me, the fact that somebody wants to protect the legality of immigration does not represent their Christianity in any way.
That's exactly right. Look, the Pope needs to ask for Donald Trump's forgiveness for saying such an outlandish thing. Look, I want to remind our viewers that it was exactly a year ago this week that ISIS chopped off the heads of 21 Coptic Christians on that Libyan beach and then looked into the camera and said, "We're coming to Rome next." The Pope, above all people, ought to understand that God has given government the role of protecting its citizens and upholding the laws. And Sean, I do have to hand it to the Pope. He performed a miracle today. He has done what nobody in history has been able to do. He has turned Donald Trump into a martyr. And I believe because of that, Trump's poll numbers are going to continue to go up. Because as much as people respect the Pope, they don't want the Pope inserting himself in the American election, and they sure don't want to be taking advice from the Pope on American security. And by the way, to the Father's comment about my book, Not All Roads Lead to Heaven, I'm simply repeating what Jesus said. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me."
Thank you all for this. Very unfortunate as a Catholic, I find this. And coming up,